our YouTube channel. My name is Amara.
And my name is Gospel.
If you're joining us for the first time, we want to bid you a warm welcome. Please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you know when we put content out. And to all our returning subscribers, it's always a joy to have you.
So today we want to talk about something really important, which is emotional maturity for successful relationship. We know that relationship is not just for anyone, it's not for children. When we are talking about relationship, we are looking at intimate relationship like marriage. You have to be physically mature, but beyond physical maturity, emotional maturity is super important in marriage because most times we make decisions based on our feeling, based on our emotions. So that's why it's important we discuss this issue. First, what exactly is emotional maturity? Maybe someone listening may not really understand what we mean. You want to go for that?
When we talk about emotional maturity, which you have already established that this is really, really important, it's about how do we manage our emotions? The ability to manage our emotions effectively. And if we look at, I think it was the American Psychological Association, they refer to emotional maturity as a high and appropriate level of emotional control and expression. I needed to read that out. A high and appropriate level of emotional control and expression. And when we talk about control, because sometimes our emotions can go out of control.
Yeah.
Especially when we feel angry or we feel stressed out, we have a tendency not to be in check of what we are saying and how we are feeling and how we're expressing that emotion. So if we talk about emotional maturity, that means you have that ability, or you have learned the ability, you have come to a point where you have
master the art
of managing, keeping your emotions under control, regardless of what you encounter in a relationship.
Definitely. I like the other part of that definition, which, yes, you can control it. You can also learn how to express it. For instance, you're angry about something. You can talk about it without, flying off the handle or creating chaos because you don't know how to express those emotions. Sometimes people have negative emotions, they keep it in check, they bottle it up, and they don't even express it. So it's a two-way thing. You're able to express your emotion. If you're not happy about something, you talk about it, you communicate. And on the flip side, emotional immaturity is the opposite of what we just talked about. And that's the tendency to express emotions
anyhow
and, without restraint.
Yeah.
You feel something, you say it the way you feel it, not regardless of how that impacts the other person. You don't process the impact of your words and your expressions on another person. So maybe we can look at the signs of emotional maturity.
Yeah, so someone might be listening right now because someone might say, okay, I've got a reference point. Someone may say, oh, I'm a Christian, or, this is my faith. Why is it that I still struggle to have or to be in control? Because that is one of the signs that you are, spiritually mature, right? But some people still struggle with this. And I think it's really important that we mention this. Because as we say, oh, well, I'm a Christian, so I'm not supposed to struggle. I think I'm emotionally stable. I'm emotionally mature. What do you have to say?
Yeah, what I need to say on that is that whatever we are, whatever expression we put out there is a function of deliberate discipline, deliberate improvement, working on ourselves. You don't just act without a thought process. So for you to act in a good way, you have to have the right information, process those information, because your feeling is a product of your thoughts. And your thought is dependent on the information you have processed or you have acquired.
Yeah.
So if you understand what it means to look at things objectively, let's use anger for instance. You've done something to me and I don't like it. I need to have the ability to think about, did you do this with the act of with the motive of hurting, or did you do it maybe because of what is going on with you? That ability to process, give myself different reasons for what happened, would influence how I feel.
So it's all down to perception.
It's down to perception.
Yeah.
Perception is influenced by information.
Yeah.
So that's the point. Don't say because you have a spiritual experience, therefore I can't have,
I cannot be
issues around
emotionally,
emotions.
Yeah.
This is what you need to work on, and this is why we're doing this.
It's all about being intentional.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to be conscious of it. You have to be willing to see yourself improve. You have to be willing to see yourself develop. It's not a default mode. Okay, now I'm spiritually mature. I'm a Christian, so then I don't have to pay attention to my emotions and how I process that.
I really don't also want us to go into talking about it from faith perspective, so to speak, because how do you know you're mature as a Christian if you don't have the capacity to, look at things from other people's perspective? Emotional maturity is part of spiritual maturity, if you look at it from the faith side of things, because what helps you to develop, to show who you are, is how you treat people. It's not just about your expression within your spiritual Christian environment and all the activities and all of those. It's about how you treat people. It's about how you manage yourself. Because if your faith does not transform who you are, then it's questionable. That's the process. So, but if you look at it from a general perspective, emotional immaturity shows itself when you're emotionally dependent. People, especially young people, think that, okay, I'm getting into an intimate relationship because I want someone to make me feel a certain way. They don't also know that how you feel about yourself is your responsibility. So emotional dependence is when I need you to be happy, I need you not to be lonely, I need you to feel confident of myself, I need you to know that I'm someone who is able to do this or that. So in that sense, when you're not there, then I feel helpless.
Well, that also reflects that there is a vacuum.
That's the vacuum we're talking about.
And it's still down to, like you said, there is a connection between the two. That reflects that there is a vacuum in your life, and you are seeking an expression of that somewhere else. And it's really important, because someone who is not whole, you're not whole spiritually, you're not whole. You have a tendency to be fragmented emotionally, because you are seeking someone else to complete you in a way that a human being cannot be able to complete you. And it's really, really important, because the reason why you find a lot of people who have got who are emotionally immature is because they haven't come to a point of wholeness. That is one of the fundamental problems. So there are still cracks. And every little issue or every little challenge could reveal the cracks in your emotion, because you haven't come to a point of wholeness.
Yes.
And understanding and recognizing and embracing who you are, and bringing that wholeness or bringing that personality forward to the other individual, and acknowledging that I've got my own flaws, he's got his own flaws. And, we need to individually work on our own flaws and make sure that we are emotionally stable to navigate whatever challenges that we are faced at the time, and not make it all about me, because some people, there's a lot of selfishness in being emotionally immature, because at that time, at that moment, you're thinking me, you're thinking, oh, I feel bad and I have to express the way I feel because I want this other person to feel the hurt that I'm feeling. So you are giving back so much of that energy to that other person because you really want to hurt that person back because you feel bad.
Yeah.
And that speaks to a lot of immaturity in terms of how you're managing your emotions. The fact that you feel bad about something, and that also goes back to the definition we had earlier. Also, your maturity speaks to how you express that. So that you're feeling bad doesn't mean that I have to express it in such a way that that other person needs to feel bad about it. You can express that you feel bad without hurting the other person.
Yeah, I think you talked about fragmentation, emotional fragmentation there. I think one of the issues around people behaving in certain ways or being emotionally dependent may not necessarily be that they don't want to grow, they don't want to be mature. you look at their background, you look at the experiences they've gone through, you look at the people who brought them up, their childhood environment, the abuses they have faced growing up from parents, from siblings, from uncles. Some could be physical abuse, it could be emotional, it could be sexual abuse. So when people have gone through myriad of experiences, you see them confused and convoluted in terms of how to, express themselves. Which is why it is important before you go into any intimate relationship to reflect on your life, look at your journey, look at the things that have gone wrong in your life. What are the things you can do to put yourself in the best state? And which is where if we talk about faith here, this is where spiritual experience comes into play. Because if you have a walk with God, if you have a relationship with God, it has a way of putting you together, because the reflection of who you are is not based on your experience. You don't say, okay, because I've gone through this or that defines me. It doesn't define you. What defines you is who God has said you are, which is why when you look at yourself with the perspective of God, because He sees you competent, He sees you lovable, He sees you valuable in spite of whatever has happened in your life. And sometimes people come into marriage, the marriage itself destroys them.
Yeah.
Because you've come into an experience in marriage where you're with someone who doesn't believe in you.
Sure.
You're with someone who talks you down, who puts you down, who speaks to you without respect, without value. And that destroys even the emotional confidence you have in yourself. Yeah. And now you're looking for ways to express that. You're hurting in your heart, you're hurting inside, and the only way you know to express your heart is by saying negative things. Yeah. It's like fighting when someone is drowning, you're gasping for air, you're trying to, save your life. You don't know how to. And that's why we do this, because we know that there are ways to deal with these issues.
Yeah. Speaking about drowning, if someone doesn't know how to swim, and you're in water and you're drowning, and somebody who knows how to swim is trying to save you from drowning, if you do not let that person take the chance to save you and you're struggling, you can actually drown.
Both of you can drown.
And drown together.
And that's what happens in marriage.
Absolutely.
Because one person is not dependent, is not independent. You're dragging the person who is mature, and both of you start expressing signs of immaturity, and it now looks like what's going on in this marriage.
Absolutely.
And most times you see people destroy their marriage because of that.
Someone might be listening now, and because we're still talking about signs, so how do you identify that you're emotionally immature? I think another sign is that you have a tendency of expressing impulsive behavior. You kind of, children are impulsive. Often you find children are very impulsive. They say what they're thinking. They don't try to process it. It's just coming out as they are trying to. You understand? So you tend to have that expressive, that impulse in terms of your speaking. You speak out of, children could speak out of turn. They could just touch things. You take them into a store, they're touching things, they're trying to experience those things. And, maybe things possibly that they shouldn't touch. And they say things without thinking about, how that is likely to affect other people. I find myself sometimes having to say to my son, quiet, don't say that, that's inappropriate, but that's because he's a child and he's gonna learn. But you find out that if you are that sort of individual in a relationship that you speak, everything is about your impulse. You feel something, you say it. You're annoyed, you scream about it. You feel that sense of taking out something and throwing things, you do it.
Yes.
That is, or you scream. Some people literally, they scream.
Some people break things.
Wow, I don't know. I haven't had that sort of impulse before.
I know.
Some people slam doors.
Yeah.
Some people do a lot of, some people hit, So these are different sort of impulsive behavior.
Definitely, because impulsive behavior, like you wanted to say more things.
Yeah, no, go on.
Impulsive behavior is not just about what you say as well.
Yeah.
Not even your action. Sometimes it's how you make decisions.
Oh, yeah.
You just think, oh, my friend has relocated to a new environment.
I have to.
Everyone, let's go.
Yeah.
Impulse. You see something, you like it, maybe someone else is using it, you like it, you just have to get it. You make decisions,
erratic
decisions without processing it. Sometimes without even carrying the person you're in a relationship with along.
Yeah.
It's like me going out now and then I'm coming back with a new car.
Yeah.
That's impulsive behavior showing up there, especially in finance. Some people go into betting, impulsive behavior. You just spend the money, bet, do it, and you land your family in severe
a lot of
debt.
debts. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a huge sign of immaturity.
That's an amazing point there. I think it's also very important to mention that another sign is attention seeking. Some people just want to be on the spotlight. Everything has to be about me. Everything has to be about whatever. In fact, the world has to stop because I'm here, right? I think that is one fundamental sign of someone who is emotionally immature, because you're constantly seeking attention. You're constantly, wanting people to think about what you want and just be at your beck and call. The world doesn't run like that.
Exactly.
Life happens. People are emotion and things happen. So yes, there might be a point where the attention is focused on you, like maybe birthdays, anniversaries, and things like that. But when it becomes a habit of you always wanting that form of attention, then that in
is
itself
an issue.
is
I also want to add that the person in this state doesn't even understand what love is, because from our point of view, love is not about what you get. It's more about what you give. And if you want to have a good relationship, if you're thinking about going into intimate relationship that could lead to marriage, or you're even in marriage, always move away from focusing on yourself.
Absolutely.
It's not about your happiness. It's not about your make me happy, love me, do this for me. Yeah, those are good things to be done for you, but what do you want to offer? Because what you give determines what you get in return.
Sometimes not.
Sometimes yes, but it should be a mutual thing.
Yeah.
We know that it takes two to tango, so it's not a one-way thing. If one person is the one who is always involved in making sure that you find the expressions you need in the relationship, he's always giving, he or she is always with the one loving, doing the good things, then it's lopsided. It's not balanced.
But the point here is focus on giving, and if we all focus on doing that, I don't think there's going to be any issue. I'm not saying that the challenges that you're facing in your relationship is going to disappear. That's not what we're saying, but it helps to enhance, that sort of the atmosphere in your relationship positively.
Definitely. Now let's look at emotional maturity. What are the things you need to do to become emotionally mature? Number one, you have to identify your emotional state. Know if you're mature or not. Understand what's going on in your emotions. You have to reflect. What kind of person am I? How do I feel when I'm angry? How do I behave when I'm angry? How do I feel? What is going on in my life emotionally? Because if you don't identify your journey to know where you are, you wouldn't know where to go to. Like we've talked about emotional immaturity. Are there some things you can point out in your own life and in your own relationship that need to be addressed? That way you know what program or what plans do you need to put in place in order to deal with such issues.
Really important to do a check, and be open, be realistic as well, because sometimes people, how can you lie to yourself? You have to be really objective about your emotional state in order for you to deal with the issues that you identify.
Very true.
Let me also add that self-awareness is key to your emotional maturity. If you're not self-aware, it's like you can seek people to tell you who you are. You need to identify, recognize who you are. You need to be self-aware for you to understand, am I emotionally mature or am I emotionally immature? Really important. Now, the second thing following up from that is you need to take responsibility. You need to take responsibility for your life, for your emotions, for your actions and your inactions. You don't have to blame somebody else and say, oh, it's because he said, she did, that's why you need to take full responsibility. And until you come to that point where you are accountable first to yourself and saying, look, this is me. It doesn't matter what somebody else does or say. I have to understand that I have to take charge of my own life, right? So my actions and inactions shouldn't be dependent on what somebody else says or do to me, right? And this is the point where you know that, look, I'm growing, I'm getting there, because you cannot take responsibility for what somebody else does, but you have to take responsibility for what you do. Really important. You don't have to keep casting the blame to somebody else. Oh, if they had done this, I wouldn't have done that. If she had done that, I wouldn't have done that. It is about you taking responsibility and understanding that, look, in your work, in your ability to want to be self-aware, that is the second step. I take full responsibility for what I've said. I'm wrong. I'm sorry about it. I would work on myself and this would not repeat itself. It is really important.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Also, taking responsibility for your life or for your emotional maturity also involves you taking responsibility for how you feel.
Yeah.
Your love. It also involves taking responsibility for how you feel. Your feeling in terms of feeling fulfilled, feeling happy, feeling, confident is your responsibility. It's not someone else's responsibility. Don't think that going into marriage is to become whole. You become whole first before you step into an intimate relationship. And I also want to say that emotional maturity is a continuum. So it's not a one-off thing. I'm done with it. I'm now mature. No more work. Yes, keep taking responsibility for your life. Even when someone does something that could hurt your feeling, it is also your responsibility to say, my feeling will not be hurt. I choose my happiness. I choose my stable state of mind. And you also need to take responsibility for working on yourself to become the best version of you.
Yeah.
We did a video on giving your best you to your spouse. You can't give what you don't have.
Absolutely.
So take responsibility for developing yourself, becoming very confident, very
self-aware,
happy person, because what you are is what you bring on board.
Leaning on what you've just said, I think it's really important to state this. You need to moderate your expectations from others. People are not perfect. Neither are you. You're not perfect, right? The reason why we have this tendency of feeling bad, having that rush of why would he, why would she kind of situation is that you've set the bar really high. They are people, right? People make mistakes. Even if you think that your husband or your wife is perfect, there's some point in their life where they kind of, it is life. So you need to moderate your expectation and, understand that you're not perfect, because you are not perfect as well. So really important, because that would help you to deal with that. That sort of helps to set that expectation in terms of what you want or what you are needing from them.
Definitely. And again, I want to say you have to develop a realistic perspective about relationship, intimate relationship, for instance, marriage. You have to develop a realistic perspective about it to know that what happens in your marriage is a product of who you are. I think I've said that before. And I also want to say that it takes effort. It takes work. It takes time to have a successful relationship. It's not by default. Don't expect that because you're married, everything is going to be rosy.
Yeah.
This person is not perfect, like you said. You are not perfect. Both of you are work in progress. So if you're not seeing that best of that person at the moment, and you see signs of immaturity, understand that you guys can be on a journey and work towards improving yourselves. We are not like this when we started. Yeah. We made our mistakes. We learned from those mistakes. Yeah. We keep learning and we are still learning. Okay? Give yourself some time. Give yourself some slack. You're doing well as it is. Don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah. Because look, adjustments take time. and you both were not cut from the same cloth. You know, as they would say, there's an expression like that. You know, you've got your own journey before you met me. I had my journey before I met you, and the same applies to whoever you are in a relationship with. And you need to, you know, be patient with them. You need to be patient. You need to also allow them that sort of safe space for them to evolve. You know, really important, and also enable them to evolve. You know, support them to evolve. It's really important that you create that conducive atmosphere, environment for them to flourish.
And the other thing we want to say, which may be the last thing we want to say, is that you have to live a principle-driven life.
Yep.
You have to live a principle-driven life, because if your life is based on good principles, godly principles, you would know how to, you know, treat others as you want them to treat you.
Yep.
You will know how to become the best version of you, because you know that you keep improving yourself, keep bringing out the best in you. Principle-driven life principle-driven life will help you avoid certain mistakes in life. Mistakes that could hurt you, mistakes that could impact on you going into a good relationship. For instance, if you know that the person you're in a relationship with do not share the same value with you, it's not time to compromise. You set boundaries, this person wants to violate all your boundaries. It's not time to compromise, because if you stay on it, it might chip away your self-confidence and your emotional maturity. What do? If this does not work in line with my principles, I move on.
Absolutely. And I think that is a word for the single people out there. Really important, because sometimes you get into a relationship and that person is saying, oh, why not cave in that way? Why not cave in that way? Why not a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right? And you find yourself compromising to the point where there are a lot of gray areas and you don't even know what your values or your principles are anymore. In that sense, you know, I don't even know who I am. And that sort of chips away your self-confidence. And to be honest, it speaks a lot about your emotional maturity. So you don't, I mean, I'm not saying, you know, don't make compromises. Certain compromise that you could make. But when it has to do with your core values and your principle, it's really important that you don't compromise on those. Really important, because that is like the foundation of who you are as an individual. And it's, I mean, we've said quite a lot. I don't know if some of you might be thinking, oh, but what about this? What about that? We haven't quite covered, you know, these things. Please feel free, because it's a conversation. You know, let us know what your thoughts are. Are there other signs to show that someone is either, you know, emotionally mature or emotionally immature? We would want to read from you. Just put it on the chat. And if you have watched this video right to this point, you haven't given us a thumbs up, you haven't subscribed if you're new, and you haven't, you know, left us a comment, you know, really important. And I also want to say that you might watch this and say, oh, I think, you know, so and so would benefit from what has been said here. Please feel free to share this video with them. And it's great to have this conversation, isn't it?
It is.
With you all, because you guys are the reason why we do what we do every week. And we love to have these conversations. If there are other things that you feel, I think they need to talk a bit more about this, please, our details are on there. Just reach out to us, let us know, and we would love to read from you, would love to hear from you. But it's been amazing having this conversation today. And until the next time, it's goodbye from us.